Hello and welcome to turn 5 of the Operation Meridian 1 scenario, or Wing Leader Eagles 4345, designed by Lee Brimmick and Wood. Okay, so couple of adjustments to make. Some kindly souls have let me know a couple of errors to deal with. Both to do with the dogfight, well, not the thing that turned into the dogfight that happened in here. So we have, if we look, the KI-44 Shoki flight here. I had that down that had actually failed its cohesion check, and I added a disrupt marker. Actually, that actually becomes a broken marker because it can only take 1 point of disruption as opposed to 2 for a squadron, so it automatically goes to broken. Now what that means is that a broken squadron can't be part of a dogfight. So we went through the process of actually having a dogfight or causing a dogfight, but that could actually never happen, so the dogfight didn't happen. Yeah, that kind of sorts that out. So that KI-44 is broken. Actually, while I was thinking about this scenario and what I'd do next turn, I was thinking of actually breaking that flight anyway, because it has only got one aircraft left, and it was going to be prey to the rest of the escorts really for the rest of the game. So I was going to do it anyway, but now it's broken. That's fine. Effectively, what it needs to do is return to base now. So we take the intercept off, and we put on a return to base marker. The other thing to do with this was the I believe it's the Hellcat here. So the Hellcat here B, if we look at B, which is here, so that was an escort. I've actually switched its mission to now to sweep. That's what happens when there's a reaction by an escort. It ceases to be an escort and becomes a sweep. So that's that. There was actually one other thing. Sorry, it's more than two. Was to do with the TBF here, S, the Avenger, that had suffered a loss. So actually, it doesn't, because it's a bomber, it doesn't get ammo low or ammo depleted markers on it. Only fighters do. So again, that gets removed as well. Right, so I think that's all the adjustments. So we're on to the setup phase, of which there's nothing to do. We will next turn when some more Japanese planes appear, the Toryus, the Nicks, but for this there's no setup. So we're on to the tally phase. So just a resume of who's tallied who now. So starting from the top, we've got our rather indolent KI-44 squadron here, Shaky Squadron, who is circling on a vector, but the vector has actually been replaced from the GCI roll I did last turn. He's spotted nobody. He's had 2 very decent rolls and rolled 1 both times, so he's seen nothing the entire game so far. This Corsair isn't looking to tally anybody because it's a broken squadron, so he's just heading home. Heading further down, we have the KI-44 flight with the expert, who is ammo depleted, and he hasn't actually spotted anybody yet. I remember last turn we dropped the tally on this Corsair when they're in the same space, and he's headed down to try and find some bombers here. So so that's him. Corsair Eye has spotted nobody. So our broken, our broken shaky flight here has been tallied. Had tallied the Avenger squadron, but of course now he's broken. That tally is broken, and they're not looking to engage anymore there. We have all the Avenger squadrons here, which haven't tallied anybody and won't, and our Corsair squadron in there, which of course has tallied the KI-44 that just broke. Up front here, we have this KI-44 which has tallied Q, I believe. Yeah, this is the it's KI-44 43 K. So it's the Hayabusa Oscar squadron here, which just had a combat here. Again, I've put an ammo marker on the Avenger. It's not necessary. And finally, we've got the Firefly over here, who is preparing to do a strafing attack down here, possibly getting rid of the balloons or diving on the Flak. One of the two things. And he dropped a tally, and he's not actually seeing anybody at the moment. Right, so Raiders units first. We ignore the bombers. So with the I think with the Corsair, he's tallied the KI-44, and I think we don't need to worry about him anymore. However, this guy is dangerous, so I think the Corsair will drop the tally on the shaky flight and will attempt to tally the Hayabusa squadron up here. So that's 1, 2, 3 hexes, and I don't think there's any modifiers because nobody. Well, a sweep squadron as opposed to an escort. So he was an escort, so he should be on the same radio as the bomber. So therefore he should be on the same. Well, of course the bombers don't tally, so that doesn't help. So maybe I don't think there is actually a modifier. It's not a veteran. It is a veteran squadron. There we go. So that's a +1, and that's it. So +1, and we need greater than a 3. We get a 4, so that tally is transferred across to K. Our Hellcat here. What shall he do? Well, I think he'll probably try and tally the K as well, but he's not a veteran, so he's not a veteran, he's H, so he's got nothing there, so it's just straight roll greater than a 3, a 5 here, so both of those tallies are moved across to K. The TBFs don't tally. The Firefly, you could try and tally here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's he doesn't suffer from behind because he's actually got an observer. It's a 2-man fighter, so that's greater than a 4. And of course there are tallies here, so that should be. Actually, no, they're escorts, and this was a sweep, so different radio net. So it's just we need 5 or 6 here. We get a 6. So there's lots of tallies on K, but I'm not sure the Firefly is going to do anything about that because he's going to convert to strafing, I think, this turn. A Hellcat, I think I will probably want him to spot this KI-43 up here, who climbed above him. That's on a 1. Yeah, again, I don't think there's there's no particular tallies there, so anything but a 1 really. A 3, that'll do. So Hellcat A finally spots somebody, and that is on J. And Corsair here, who again hasn't seen anybody, will try and spot this KI-44 here, and he's coming out of the sun. It's in the sun, so it is a -1, so it's a 1 or a 2 will fail here. But he does spot it, so I tallies H there. Okay, and this Corsair isn't going to tally anybody because he's heading for home. G, yeah, up here he's heading for home. Right, so that's on the radar side. So on the Japanese side, I think this guy's quite happy to stick with this bomber. He's got where he needs to be. This KI-43, I think he will attempt to spot, say, this Avenger here, if we can get through and attack. So that's 1, 2, 3, and he is. So J has an expert but isn't a veteran, so that doesn't make any difference. But there are more 3 or more squadrons in the formation, so that's a +2. So he should be able to do this. Anything but a 1, I think. So a 3, yes. So J spots Avenger R here, and then we move on to H, the Shoki expert veteran flight here, and I think maybe he would possibly try and spot the Avenger down here. Would that be the case, or is it worth him trying to spot, say, this Corsair? I think that might be the best idea. So, okay, so that Corsair, and we will, yeah, it's anything but a 1, and it's a veteran anyway, so I think it's automatic. Yeah, so it's a 2, but that's fine. So H and I spot each other, and then we have our KI-44 up here, who's spotting nobody, and he's going to vector down here anyway, but let's try and say spot this Hellcat maybe. I don't think we'll bother with his Corsair, but this Hellcat at least might be something to see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I don't think there's anything special here. Has anybody targeted that Hellcat A? Nobody's on A at the moment, so nobody's tallied him. And that's also, it's a straight roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's a 5 or a 6. A 2. No, he's still circling. However, actually he's not circling anymore. He will be moving on his turn down to that vector. Okay, so that's the tally phase done, I think. The only thing I think that we might want to do is to possibly split some squadrons here on the Japanese side. So, yeah, so J is spotting A, and I think what we should do is split that squadron there. So I'm just going to turn him upside down so I know it's that one. We can't split that squadron because he's not doing anything. shall we split this squadron? Maybe it's an idea just to give the escorts different things to aim at here. Although it's more likely to at least have a chance of surviving. Interesting. I think I think we will split K as well. Okay, so I'll organise all that because we have to add some more wing displays here as well once we split them. So I'll do that all off camera. So I completed that. J here has been replaced by R and C, and the expert has gone to C. C has kept the tally down here with the Avenger R. Both are disrupted. The loss goes on to R, and I think that's about it. They're both low ammo. A has kept the tally on C, so they're mutually tallying each other. No, they're not. C's tallying down here, A's tallying C. So it's following the attacking fighter rather than the not sure what to do now flight. Okay, down here we've replaced K with A and D. And again, both are low ammo. A is sticking with Q, the Avenger Q. The other one has dropped the tally, as he has to do, and is probably not going to do much this turn. It's probably going to be circling now. N and B, which is the Hellcat and the Corsair at the back of the bombing formation, are going for A. And the Firefly is tallying D, although I say he's not particularly going to use that, I think. Other things are that A, as it was an escort, and I as the escort are now switched to sweep because they've tallied something. And I think we're just about that's it for the tally phase. So we're on to the movement phase. And movement, of course, is escorts first. There are none anymore. Everything's all the escorts are now sweep. So we're on to the bombers. So we move the bombers on. 1, 2, and A. I believe it's A. A has tallied Q, so A now moves. So that's back on itself for 1, 2, 3. Loses the dive marker because it's not diving anymore. And then A has been tallied by N and B. So N and B now move. Sorry, actually, those are wrong. That's the Firefly, and that's the Corsair. So H and B, not N and B, will move. So they have 3 movement as alerted fighters. 1, 2, 3. So they're catching up with the KI-43. And actually in the same space as the other KI-43. But you're not actually going to be engaging it because they haven't seen each other. And B and H, which is B and H here, nobody's tallied, so that's the end of that chain of tallies. So have we moved all the bombers? No, we haven't. So T, nobody has tallied. We get to R, who also comes into this space, and it gets very crowded. R has been tallied by C, so C here can react. So he can go 1, 2, 3, 4 with the dive. So C comes down here. This is going to be a hell of a square by the end of this. Now C has been tallied by A. A is the Hellcat, who will then follow it down as well. And there just isn't enough room for anything here. So these are the guys who haven't tallied everybody, except for I'll put the Avenger on top, and then we can put C and A here with dive marker. Right. And nobody's tallied A, so that's the end of that. And we come to the back bomber here, S, which nobody has tallied. It was the tally was dropped because of the broken KI-44, the show key here. So that's the bombers done, and then it's initiative order, because everybody's alerted now. Then it's initiative order. So it's lowest, it's lowest altitude first. So that will be the Firefly here. So we've got to work out doing this strafing. Right, so our sweeping Firefly is now going to dive onto this heavy flak unit, I think. So it's a one moving point to go there and keep the dive marker. Shall we go this way? So that's 1, 2, and then we go vertical. That's half movement, 2.5, 3, and then 4 onto the heavy flak unit. Now it does look like it's about to slam into the ground, but I think this is what you can do with strafing. Actually, I did that wrong. So he can dive, I believe he was there, straight down within 2 columns, but then has to level out. So here it'll be half 1, half 2, and then 3, and then 4 into the heavy flak zone there. So the heavy flak unit there. So that's how he does it, is actually a dive and then across. You can't dive more than 1 level within 1 square of the target. So he has to do the dive out here and then level out, if you like, to come in strafing, I suppose, is the idea. Okay, so the strafing attack actually happens immediately it enters the square. But before we do that, he was here and dived straight, didn't he? So he wasn't in any of the barrage zones, so I didn't place those very well. Yeah, maybe I should have pushed that across here. But he avoids the flak, probably due to my incompetence for putting down barrages than anything else. But he then gets to attack strafe the heavy flak unit immediately. Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so the bomb value is actually 1 plus the firepower of the unit, and that's, so 3 plus 1 is a 4. However, before they do that, I was just thinking whether the barrage balloons do anything, but no, they're still here. So it's a free bombing attack really onto that flak unit. So we look at the bombing table. We haven't actually done that yet. Let's see how it looks. So this is the bombing table. So 2 dice to roll, and it gives you a percentage of hits of the bombing value, the bombing strength. Okay. So we have a lot of modifiers here. So altitude, we're at 0, so there's no altitude modifier. If there is a defense modifier, so let's look at that. That's actually a 0 here. There's a 0 defense modifier for the Flak unit. It's not a kamikaze attack. It is strafing, so there's a +3 for strafing. These are the different types of attack. Bomber not attacked by Flak this game turn, so that's true. So that's a +4. And I don't think we've got anything else here. No, so it's a +4 on the dice. So we look at that bombing table. So that's actually quite a good amount. So let's roll the 2 dice. See what we get. We get an 8. +4 is 12. So a 12 is 100% of hits. So the bombing strength is 4, so that's 4 hits onto the heavy Flak unit. Right, so that results in 4 hits. Now if we look carefully at the heavy Flak unit here, and we have a damage value here which happens to be 4, so equal to the number of hits. And what that means is that the Flak is suppressed, so effectively it's not going to fire anymore, and it's effectively suppressed for the rest of the game. It's also going to provide victory points for the hits as well, but we'll do that at the end. But effectively the Firefly has done its job, and that barrage marker will be removed, and that heavy Flak unit can't fire anymore. So okay, that's strafing done. The last thing we need to do is on our let's get our display down here and move it for the Firefly. The thing we need to do, of course, is having done the strafing attack, it needs to flip to ammo -2 depleted. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I think we should take a cohesion check here. But it's not air combat, so most of the modifiers don't apply, and it's just veteran green and any losses. So as we don't actually look at the ammo value, so a little bit uncharted territory here. So it's not air combat per se. So we shouldn't count the ammo marker, which seems a bit odd to me. But anyway, we'll run with what it's got here. Also, as it was strafing, it actually acts as a bomber rather than a fighter. So anyway, we roll 2 dice and there's no modifier at the moment. We have a 6, which even if we do take one off for the loss, actually. That's true. So there's actually a 5. If we had the depleted, that would have turned into a 3, which would have caused a disruption, but I'm assuming not here. 5 is none, so they're okay. Right, so we've done that strafing, and we're still actually trying to be doing our move here. So who haven't we moved? The next highest here, I think everybody has moved. The next one is this KI-44, which is on a return to base. So I think he will dive here, 1, and then probably go further down to go past the clouds. I think 1, 2, 3, and +1 for the dive, 4. So he will attempt to get away. I think I'll reorganise these after I finish the movement. Fine, so next highest here we have is the R and the I. So basic speed of the Corsair is 6. The basic speed for the Hayabusa is 5 -1 for the climb. So the Hayabusa goes first. That's R. R doesn't have a tally, so it will need to place a vector in the administrative phase, or attempt to. So at the moment it's going to circle, but it will lose the climb. Okay, and then onto the Corsair. The Corsair has spotted H. Now where has H gone? Oh, H is up here. So he moves. And I suppose the best thing to do is just to meet the KI-44 there. Unfortunately, I have a climb marker to do it. That takes care of that. Then we have H, which has tallied I coming up to meet, and I think has to stay there. Okay, in this case, this is actually a head-on attack here. So in this case, he can move out of the square, and I think that's what he will do. As long as he doesn't linger in the square. So what he's going to do, I think, is dive away, because we don't want to mess with this Corsair if we can help it. We need to go for the bombers. So he's got 4 movement with a dive. Whoops. And that's half, 1, 1.5. And then we'll stay here, because of course he hasn't actually clocked this Avenger, but it's very nicely placed for next turn. So that's an interesting little passage there, where the Corsair climbed up to meet the KI-44, and the KI-44 dived out the way. Interesting. Okay, so we're left with the 2 up here. Our intercept, no, it's actually, first it's the Corsair. The Corsair with 3 movement, 1, 2, 3, is attempting to get away and isn't going to come back, so he'll head that way off the board, and would possibly roll for escape for him, actually, because the Japanese are nowhere near. This KI-44 will dive onto this vector here, and then I believe he's got a dive marker, but he will be circling. Yeah, so but he's circling on his vector here, and hopefully he'll now pick up somebody that he can fight. And I think that's the movement phase now. I probably made quite a few errors there, but there was a lot of change of tallies and different things here, but I think I pretty much got it. So I need to reorganise all the wing displays for the combat phase. But the combat here, so we have a combat here, and we have a combat here, I believe. So those will be the 2 combats. So I'll rearrange these and then shift those 2 squares onto the battle display, and that one is going to be something else, really, although most of them are not interested in the fight. Yeah, okay. So I'll do that, and we'll move across to the battle display. So onto the battle display. It looks a bit confusing here, but up in Able, we actually have 3 Japanese flight and 2 British squadrons here who aren't actually involved in the flight. They've tallied no one, or they've tallied somebody different. These guys are heading off actually after the squadron in the Japanese squadron in Baker, yeah. So these aren't involved, and their displays are just up here. So off, we don't really care. So we have a TBF Avenger here, flying level, and then diving on it is the Hayabusa, the KR-43, in a dive, being followed by a Hellcat in a dive as well. And so the Hayabusa has tallied the Avenger, the Hellcat has tallied the Hayabusa. So that's how it is. Now, of course, with a bomber involved, the British are the defenders. Just having a look at the various calculations for the air combat table. So our Hellcat is a 6 on speed. The Hayabusa will pick speed. I think the best thing to do. We don't want extra defense ratings from the Avenger if we're turning. So even though it's slightly disadvantageous, so it's for the Hayabusa it's a 5, but ends up a 4 because it's a flight. It's also disrupted, but what's the reason for the 4? 5. Oh yes, and dive. So it ends up a 4, 5, 6, 5, and a flight 4. And it's got a +1 on its attack roll because it has an expert, of course. Over with the Hellcat, as we were before, which is a 6 base, and then it has a +1 because of the dive marker. So 7 to 4. There's no modifier for the defender here. Defense rating is 0. Right. So with that roll, we are on +3, -3 table, and the Japanese are on a -1. So we'll roll those first, and they're on a -3. That's a 5. That's really not going to do anything. No, that's a complete miss. And for the Hellcat, we're on the +3 table with no modifier. Oh, 11. Ouch. Okay, so 11, no modifier on +3. That's 3 hits. Yeah, big ouch. Okay, so let's roll for these in turn. And any modifiers there? I don't believe there is any. It's not an expert squadron or anything. So yeah, just straight rolls. And the Hayabusa, as we see here, is 3 and 4 on its protection. So not particularly. Let me just bring that to the side maybe, and then you can see the protection rating easier there. So first hit, and it's +2 firepower for the Hellcat. So it's a 7. Oops, can't see that. That's a 7. So that is a loss. And the next one on +2 is another 5. So that's another 7. And finally, a 2 + 2 is a 4, which is a straggler. Okay, and then cohesion hits here. Cohesion checks, sorry. Cohesion hits. Different game. So the cohesion table, For the Japanese, we have 2 loss markers for a -2, and it was the attacking side, so it's -1 now. It does have a -1 ammo marker though, so it's -2 again, and I think that's it. Yeah, it's not veterans of squadron. Yep. Yep, that's all. So a -2 on its cohesion check for the Hayabusa. So that's an 8 -2 is a 6. A 6 is 1 disruption level, so it does break. On the Hellcat side, I don't think there's any particular modifiers. No modifiers. So just a straight roll. A 10 is fine. And we add the ammo markers to the 2 fighters, and that's the end of that combat. So it's successful by the escort there has picked up the Oscars. However, there's an Oscar squadron here on its own with the Avenger, so the roles are reversed here really. It's an attack, but we have the Hayabusa doing a speed which is a 5, and I don't believe there's any particular modifier here. No, because it's a squadron this time. And the defense here is for the Avenger, if we move down a bit, on speed is a 3, -1 for the bomb load, but +1 for being veteran. So it's 5 versus 3, so it's +2 -2, and there aren't any particular dice roll modifiers here because we're using the defense rating of 0 of the Avenger just down here. It's not a turning fight, so no modifiers, and it's +2 -2. So for the shot at the Avenger on +2, we have a 6. Not brilliant, but it is 1 loss finally. And on the -2, we have a 7, which is nothing. So 1 loss roll for the Avenger. We'll roll that loss. Protection rating for the Avenger is actually a 4 to 5. That's pretty good actually. And the firepower for the Hayabusa is only a 1. It's not an expert or anything like that, so I believe it's just a straight roll. So +1. A 3 going to a 4, that's a straggler. So tough little things. These big things, these Avengers. So the straggler there. And cohesion check. So for the Japanese, no losses, but there isn't a low ammo marker, so -1, but it is attacking, so it's +1, so it's a straight roll. 2 dice on the fighter table. I have an 8, which, as you can see here, is fine. It's 7 or more. And on the bomber side, we have no losses. It is a veteran, so it's a +1, and that's it. So there is a +1 on the cohesion check for the Avengers, and that's a 6 going to a 7, which on the bomber table is a 0. So okay, that's all the combats then. So again, the British kind of win that, I think, in actuality. But anyway, let's put all these bits back onto the main board and see where we are for the administrative phase. Okay, we're back on the board. As you can see, it looks a little bit jumbled just around where the bomber squadrons are, and I've had to tail off some of the displays away. from the chaos in the middle here. However, in the administrative phase, which we now do, the first thing we do is roll to escape. So these are squadrons which just want to go home, and it's whether the opponent lets them. So the players can agree that they can escape, and I think I will do that for this guy here, because he is way out of the fight. The other broken unit here, which is returning to base, is the heavily damaged flight here. So what I'm going to do is, to be honest, he can go home, but what I want to do is just do a roll as an example here. So it's a bit like a tally roll, that's all, but there's none of those usual modifiers. So you count the squares, it's a 3. It's +1 because of the wispy cloud, so 4. So there's a dice roll, and yeah, if the dice roll is less than, then they escape. So we need a 1, 2, or 3 for them to escape. What I might do is actually remove them anyway, but I'll do the roll. So I'm just using this as kind of an example. So the roll here is a 5, so it doesn't escape. However, I'm just going to take it off the board anyway. So I don't think anybody's going to bother with it at all. So we remove the display. And for counting up the victory points next time, well, at the end of the game, if you like. Good. Okay, so that's escape done, and the only other things here. Do we want to make any of these fighters escorts now? And I don't believe we do. We'll keep them as suites because they're tallying everything, and yeah, we'll keep them as is. Any changes of vectors? So the only one really. So right, we have. I believe it's D here. It's the guy who's flying through the melee. We need to place a vector for him. It's probably not going to be particularly useful, but we will need to roll GCI to place a vector, and we'll put, say, the vector, I don't know, here, I suppose. Maybe up there. No, maybe there. We don't want him to climb. So yeah, and we roll to see if that actually happens on GCI. So GCI is 4, so we need to roll is it greater than? Let me just check. Yeah, it's equal to or greater than, so we need a 4, 5, or 6. We get a 2, so that doesn't succeed, so he hasn't got a vector, but I'm not sure it'll be that relevant. He's bound to spot somebody flying through the Piccadilly Circus that's going on here. We may want to change the vector here. I think we probably will. We'll try and move that down to here from this partially, well, inattentive, shall we say, KI-44 Shoji squadron. So it's 4 again because of the GCI, and we roll a 6, so that succeeds. So remove the vector, but hopefully again he'll pick up what on earth he's doing. And do we have anybody else? I'm not sure. Everybody else has done D. Everybody else either has a tally out really on the Japanese side. Yeah, so we're all done for that, and flak barrage markers, final thing. So over here, the heavy flak goes because it's now suppressed, and I think we might. Well, I think that's reasonable actually. They have to stay on on the column, a corner of the column they're on, so the light flak here, light flak there. I think that's reasonable. Gives us a sort of solid maybe, no, yeah, that's fine. No, we'll keep the barrage up like that. I think the light flak units are covered by the barrage balloons here, so that's fine. Okay, so that's pretty much the turn, and we move the turn up to turn 6, which will mean that some Japanese reinforcements come in. So I've done 2 turns per video. I think I'll switch this down to 1 turn per video because it's getting quite intricate now. So the next video will be turn 6. So anyway, hope you were able to follow what's going on in the complete mess that's up here, hovering around the bombing squadrons. And we should be coming in for a run probably in a couple of turns time for the bombing run, the actual bombing sequence. But yeah, let's see how it goes from then. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video for turn 6. Bye for now.